Hello, everybody. This is Karen Black. I'm our Director of Communications for Coastal Community Foundation. Thanks so much for joining us for our first ever Coastal Community Foundation online town hall meeting. And we thank you for joining us. I think we have about roughly 50 to 60 attendees signed up. If for some reason you have to leave early or cannot stick on the line, just shoot us an email at communications@coastalcommunityfoundation.org, and we will send you a link to this, and also a link to the entire presentation will be pushed out for everybody via our social media and on our e-news. So once again, thanks for attending, folks. Next, I am going to go full screen here, and I'm going to introduce to you our leadership team who is on the line today. And just to let you know, I believe you can type your questions in at any time, but there will be 15 minutes at the end of today's presentation for you all to, for us to answer the questions that you type to us. All right, folks. So today we have with us our President and CEO, Mr. Darren Goss, as well as our senior leadership team here at the Foundation. Angel Johnson-Brebner is our Executive Vice President. Edie Blakesley is our Vice President of Grantmaking and Community Leadership. Krista Divis is our Vice President of Finance and our CFO. And Melissa Levesque, if you're wondering how to pronounce her last name, Levesque is our Vice President of Development and Stewardship. So welcome, leadership team. Thanks for being with us today. I am now going to hand it over to our CEO, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about what is a community foundation and why we're doing this today.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We are privileged as a leadership team and as an organization to be able to do this virtual online town hall. A couple of things we wanted to accomplish today, for those of you who may not know what a community foundation is to briefly describe what a community foundation is, walk you through our journey of a brief history, perspective on our service area, and then dive into our strategic framework, essentially what we will be focused on over the next 3 to 5 years as an organization. And then my colleagues on the leadership team will provide some details on some of the key initiatives and strategies that we'll be undergoing as a community foundation in support of the communities around us. So very briefly, a community foundation is a public charity dedicated to improving lives. It's defined by a geographic region in most cases. It brings together resources of individuals, families, and businesses. We'll talk a little bit about how we as a Coastal Community Foundation think about those types of resources a little bit later. Community foundations assets range from less than $100,000 to upwards of $1.7 billion, the larger community foundations, and they are in every state and represent more than or close to 750 community foundations in the country. Last year, community foundations gave roughly $4 billion to nonprofits who serve communities in the United States of America, and so we're very happy to be and have contributed to that number as well. So what are we doing today? Again, just a quick recap. We're going to share CCF's purpose statement and values. Our board has worked on these over the last 6 months, and so we're happy to introduce that to so many people. We will talk about our strategic framework and our civic engagement agenda. That's our effort to turn outward and work with communities. And then we are doing that because essentially our fundamental purpose and goal is to work with communities in a collaborative spirit. And so what do we mean by this spirit of collaboration? What we fundamentally believe as a community foundation is that we are here to work with our donors to help unite them to communities, working with communities, and leveraging all the forms of philanthropic capital that exists in communities. We also believe fundamentally that we are not here to do things to communities, that along with our donors and other funding partners, that we endeavor to work with communities, understanding where their needs, their goals, their dreams, and their aspirations are, and then working alongside them in communities to get things done. We also believe collaboration extends to the funding community itself, between private, family, community, and private foundations, as well as United Ways. We seek to leverage all of our influence and capital to actually get things done. The final thing I would say about this idea of collaboration is that we understand as an organization that our best work is done with others, that we don't work in a vacuum, communities don't exist in silos. And so collaboration, real collaboration that requires trust, time, as well as a deep respect for the different turf that people occupy is a part of our philosophical shift in mindset as we go forward. The Coastal Community Foundation is a foundation that serves the 9 counties of the Low Country of South Carolina. We were founded in 1974. We have 4 affiliate organizations that we work with. Angel will talk about those organizations a little bit later. And we manage more than $250 million in assets and award about $17 million a year in grants. We are very excited today to really launch, for many, our new organizational purpose and value statements. Our board work as well as our staff on these over a 6-month period. And so for the first time publicly, outside of other conversations we've had, I'd like to say that the Coastal Community Foundation helps create vibrant communities by uniting people and investing resources. As we unpack that, there is a philosophy and a set of core values for how we endeavor to execute that work. First one is stewardship, that we provide insightful service to our donors, our grantees, and our communities. That means that we take the time to listen to communities, listen to donors, listen to our grantees, and ensure that we are connecting, that we're being very responsive to those needs, to those opportunities, and then doing a great job of connecting those the same. We endeavor to do our work with integrity, earning and maintaining trust by demonstrating ethical standards, honesty, and consistency. There should be no question about who we are, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and with integrity as well as honesty, we should represent the best of our community. And then thirdly, and our board really believes in this, is inclusion with equity, that we will challenge ourselves daily to champion fairness and accessibility for all people in our communities. Simply put, diversity and inclusion are important. Equitable outcomes, the result of that work is equally as important to us as a community foundation. And we take that very seriously, both for ourselves, for the communities that we work with, our partners, and everyone else who will do business with the Community Foundation. And then finally, courage, that we will take bold action to address the important issues affecting our communities. And sometimes, for us as a community foundation, that is to be silent. Oftentimes, that will include us being and taking a verbal and active approach in addressing as well as bringing communities together on some of our stickiest issues in community. How we endeavor to do that is through a strategic framework. And that framework for us over the next 3 to 5 years is to build credibility. Edie will talk, I will talk a little bit about the civic engagement agenda, but the credibility that we seek to build is to mount honesty and courage by implementing the civic engagement agenda, an agenda that we spent 10 months listening to the communities that we serve on, and aggregating that information to focus on 3 themes that I'll review in just a minute. We do this because we want to create vibrant communities by uniting people and resources. The second one is conviction, and that is for us to embed inclusion with equity within the walls of CCF and throughout all the relationships we forge. Capacity to achieve sustainability by building a healthy, agile, and very important to us, donor-centric business model. And then finally, communication. Because we are changing as a community foundation, because we are moving to being more than just a community savings account, but to being much more, we understand that we have to communicate, frankly, over-communicate what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and the net benefit to the donors and to the communities we serve. A very important aspect of the work going forward for us. We will do that by leveraging what we call here passing gear philanthropy, which is a concept started years ago, but but extended through MDC Inc. in Durham, North Carolina. And that's really leveraging 5 forms of philanthropic capital. That's social capital, meaning that we will leverage the networks and relationships that we have and that our donors and that our community nonprofits have to foster change. That will leverage our moral capital, that will take sometimes countercultural positions on important issues that are relevant to the work that we'll be doing as a community foundation. That will use intellectual capital, that will disseminate data and meaningful information to community partners and grantees, again, to help shape strategy and help move initiatives forward. And that we understand that along with our integrity comes a reputational capital that changes sometimes the civic conversation about the future direction of the community, that we're willing in some cases to put our reputation on the line to move the needle on issues. And then finally, financial capital, making grants and program and mission related investments. We'll talk a little bit more about our place-based impact fund, which is an example of doing more than just making grants here in a few minutes. But we believe that the 5 forms of philanthropic capital all working together is what actually provides us the opportunity to create those vibrant communities, unite people, and actually invest resources. Very quickly, let me walk through the civic engagement agenda themes. Again, we turned outward. I'm an Edie. I'm sorry. So let me transition to Edie Blakesley. I'm so excited about this work that sometimes I get ahead of myself. Let me transition to Edie Blakesley, our Vice President of Grantmaking and Community Leadership, to tell you more about the civic engagement agenda work and our strategy goal number 1, credibility.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you for stealing my thunder, too. So we did embark on this 10-month program, and we decided what we were going to do is turn outward. And what that meant was we were going to listen to folks who weren't the usual suspects. We have lots of conversations with our board members. We have lots of conversations with our donors. We have lots of conversations internally with grantees, but we really wanted to stretch ourselves and listen to people who may not know who we are, but know about what's going on in their communities and were willing to share that information with us. And this idea was that we would go out and have small kitchen table conversations. We did this up and down the coast from Horry County all the way down to Beaufort, and we had several partners in this work. The slide deck has a little bit more information about that because what I really want to get to is sort of what came out of that. We had 40 community conversations total. It was over 450 different people, and there were 5 themes that came out of that. After listening to everybody in our 9 coastal counties, first they talked about connected, livable communities. And for many people, this was really about knowing their neighbors, wanting to know their neighbors, realizing that we have a lot of people moving from other parts of the country to this area. They wanted to be able to walk and get to where they needed to be, but they wanted this shared sense of community. Number 2 was promoting community safety. And this was everything from sidewalks and lighting and children playing outside in the evening to the opioid addiction and fear for children and gang issues. And so this was really a very large topic, but really was very rooted in wanting to feel safe and having our family safe and our community safe. Number 3 was access to economic opportunity. And this one really had 2 strong sub-themes. One was along race lines, that people of color felt like they did not necessarily have access to financial capital, to reputational capital in order to launch businesses or to have resources for renovating their homes. And then additionally, the second theme was really related to urban versus rural communities. Oftentimes, our rural residents felt like they were left behind and did not have access to the types of resources that were more readily available in urban settings. And then number 4 was education. Should come as no surprise, but education really, it came up in more than a third of the conversations as the number 1 topic. And it was everything from early childhood education, graduating high school, or needing to retool skills in order to get a job when you're in your 50s and 60s. So this was, again, a very wide range of topics, but all centered around a quality education, regardless of where you are in age or stage of life. And then the 5th one, it was affordable places and inclusive spaces. And this was about being able to afford a house in the area that I work in. It was about, when I graduate college, am I going to be able to stay where I want to? And are these really inclusive spaces? Is there transitional housing? Is there a way that our communities are organized around community and people in general, and not necessarily exclusionary, where some folks wouldn't be able to come to the table? So of these 5, our board wrestled with all of them and told us that we wanted to focus on 3. And it was to identify 3 in particular that we would be able to spend our energy over the next 3 to 5 years, where we would be able to apply our efforts so that we could make a difference. All of the other 2 are equally important. These are all interrelated topics, but our board really gave us a strong nudge to focus on 3 in particular so that we could really dive in. And those 3 were, the first one is access to economic opportunity, number 2 is education, and number 3 is affordable places and inclusive spaces. We will be issuing more information about each of these topic areas that's undergirded with data, so that we know where we may be able to do some work, put our shoulder to the plow, so to speak, and help make some progress on these 3 very complex issues in a way that will benefit all community. And then now I'll transition to some of the ways that we're aligning our work against some of the themes, and then also improving upon the work that we've done for the last 40 years, because it is very much rooted and embedded in incredible good work, and we wanted to make sure that we kept all of those roots and that foundation and build on it. So the first thing I'll mention is we have made enhancements to our grant-making programs, and for any of our nonprofit applicants on the line, you guys have seen this work being rolled out over the last year. We've aligned our grant-making deadlines to 2 times during the year. For Coastal Community Foundation, it's January and June, and for Waccamaw Community Foundation, it's January and July. We've made sure that there's 2 times of year that we communicate when that is, that everybody is clear about when they can apply and what that means. The other thing is that we've also applied an equity lens on our grant-making program. So we did quite a bit of analysis over a 3-year time frame, looking at who we had given grants to prior, so that we understood and we could then help our grants committees make good recommendations about where we allocate dollars in the future. And equity is really that piece that is so important across the board. And I want to pause and say it's not necessarily about checking a box. It's not necessarily that we want to only fund one type of organization or a minority-led organization. We really wanted to embed equity in all of that across the board so that it wouldn't simply be us checking boxes, that we were living our diversity, equity, and inclusion policy, and that it actually was taking shape, and you would see evidence within our grant-making programs. 2 things I'll highlight is for Waccamaw Community Foundation, their grant programs have doubled in size. So for some, it was you could ask for up to $2,500. Now you're able to ask for up to $5,000. And in a second one, that increased to 10,000. So a bigger dollar amount is always better. You can do more with more, as Darren says. And for Coastal Community Foundation specific, one grant making program I'll spend a few minutes on is our Buford Fund. That's not to exclude our Northern Low Country partners, but just to really highlight one program in particular. It's through our Southern Low Country Regional Grant Program. And prior, we had one program once a year, and we gave up to $15,000 awards. It was wonderful, great. We've been doing that for 20 years. And this year, we've enhanced it, and there are now 3 program threads. One leg is the Genesis grant that you can ask for up to $8,000. Another one is the operational grant that was formerly up to $15,000. Now you can ask for up to $20,000 in that bucket. And then the third is a first-time grantee that you can ask for up to $10,000. The question I've gotten most frequently is, why do we now have 3 when we only had 1? And the very basic answer is we wanted to make sure that we were accessible and we had an on-ramp for many organizations in all 4 of those counties so they could access that capital, so that we could work with more partners. And that deadline is coming up, so it's in July. Make sure that if you have not yet registered on our website that you do so. There is a tutorial on how to do that if you've never done it before, and then that way you can access the grant application and you can begin filling that out. Excuse me. The enhancements to our scholarship programs, this is actually applicable to both Coastal Community Foundation and Waccamaw Community Foundation. March is usually scholarship season, so you should definitely be paying attention. The 2 things that I'll highlight is that we are working to award larger dollars, so individual awards. So instead of a lot of $500 scholarships, maybe raising that up a little bit more. For Waccamaw in particular, there's one of their scholarships that's increased to $20,000 a year, which is pretty significant. The other thing that we're working on is really paying attention to multi-year scholarships. So it's really great that we're able to support students in their freshman year of college, but then what happens in their sophomore, junior, and senior? We want to make sure that it's renewable so that there's a consistent base of financial capital to sort of get to the end. And then I should not pass up the opportunity to talk about our Pinckney Scholars Program. This program is in memory of Reverend Pinckney, and it's for 10 students. It's up to $10,000 a year for each of 4 years. And the piece that I'm very excited about is that we're expanding that program to take a step back into the junior year. So we will have a program this coming fall where we work alongside, and I want to underscore alongside and with guidance counselors within the schools in order to help them better prepare students to take their SATs, ACTs, to think about how they're going to get to college, how to pay for college, and then we would like to provide supports for them to be able to better compete for scholarships in general. So more to come on that in the coming months, but that's a really exciting piece for us that we're able to step back. And then one more slide, yes. So there are other partnership opportunities. You know, Darren and I have spent the last couple months going and having town hall meetings. We promised people who gave us their wisdom, that shared that wisdom with us, that we would go back and do a gut check to make sure that we heard what they said. We heard what they said. And in part of this is we've invited partnership opportunities and to get to know people and to get to know organizations doing work throughout our footprint. 2 of the partnership opportunities I'll lift up is that we recently, along with 5 other partners, participated in Connect Capital. It was a 1-month effort, essentially, to sort of look at your community and how to attract financial capital, not necessarily grants, but investment capital from externally, from outside of South Carolina into the area. Another one that I'll talk about that we were just selected for, we are piloting an assessment tool, and it's through the National Committee for Responsible Philanthropy. And NCRP is a partner in the country, and they look at working alongside foundations, community foundations and private foundations, to help them increase their impact, sort of up their game. And this particular pilot is around equity. We felt it was really important for us to pair with other foundations where equity is a centerpiece of their work moving forward. And we're going to go down this with 5 other foundations. And it's essentially a tool to help us build and share power. And what that means for us is that we're going to continue to turn outward. It's not only going to be our board and our staff at tables, but we're going to learn how to better include external voices into our work to help shape that work. And one of the things that I want to make sure that before I pass it off to Krista is, you know, we really do invite people to share what's going on in communities with us. You know, me particularly, I'm glad to have emails and telephone calls. We really do want to learn about what's happening, all of that good work, but we also want to be very cognizant of deepening relationships outside of the Charleston area, throughout our service area, because we do know that progress happens at the speed of trust. And we really want to be intentional about that and thoughtful about that, and we would invite anybody on the phone or anybody who listens to this after the fact to reach out to us and share the good work they're doing in community. So with that, I think I took more than my allotted time, but I'm going to pass it on to Krista Divis, our CFO.
Thank you, Edie. Thank you, Darren, and thank you for Karen for getting us all teed up on this session today. So what we're going to talk a little bit about is what finance's role is in all this, which might be a little unique for some of you to have a finance person actually speaking outside. So that's our first example of turning outward, is that we are finance people, and we do turn outward, and we're certainly working to improve on that all the time. Inside of our organization, we call them rooms of the house, and we take it seriously that not only is Grantmaking community leadership working in the community and development stewardship, which you'll hear from in a minute, but so is finance. And so we're going to talk a little bit about one of the ways that finance is getting some muscle memory around how we can turn outward into the community beyond what we've done before. So the first thing we're going to talk about is place-based impact investing, PBI, as we like to call it internally, or PBII. And this initiative is useful, I think, to understand what it is not. So what we have here is just a little bit of information about what impact investing is not. First, it's not providing grants. So the distinction here is that with a grant, the money goes out, and while we hope for good things for that money, including some social returns and impact, we don't expect the money to come home. So this is different in that this is an investment instead of a grant. An investment meaning we would want the money to come home with some actual returns. It's also not, as you might think of as part of an investment strategy, something we might do in our investment portfolio, such as ESG, SRI. It's very finance specific, but it's very broad social returns that we might ask for from our general investments, but isn't necessarily locally based. So therefore, it's not that sort of investment strategy either. It's also not investing in below market investments or returns. Often when folks hear that we are going to be involved in the investment space locally, they think that we have an expectation that we're taking a loss, that these are loss leaders, or we're just doing it for the good of the community. And certainly the good of the community is important, but so is putting our financial capital to work to make sure that we have the good returns to continue our organization into perpetuity. And then last, it's also, is the way we're working on this, not prescribing expected social returns. So again, as Darren mentioned before, working with community and not doing things to community is extremely important to us. So part of this process is to ask, what is the social return that the projects are after, and what do the community need, versus us saying from here, from our office on 635 Rutledge, what that should be. So that's a little bit about what impact investing is not. And I will say that the first 3 of these points are all things we currently do. So we deploy grants, and we do that very well with Edie's group. We work on different investment strategies to make sure we have a healthy portfolio. And we do actually have a history of some program-related investments where we've made some below market rate loans, which has been very successful. So we have these initiatives, and we're going to deploy something new. So what the new thing is our place-based impact investing. So what it is, and this is going to look very much opposite of what you just saw intentionally. First, it's an investment, so that, again, the money comes back home. And it can be, which makes it unique from what we see on the grant side or other spaces, related to a for-profit or nonprofit. we are not set on any sort of organizational structure. It's the projects that we are invested in, not necessarily how they are legally put together. And they will have, along with some financial returns, some measurable social impact as well. So this is not just a money maker. It is also supposed to be a social impact, some kind of social good maker as well. So that is what broadly the impact investing is. Our journey to this has had some history. So we really started in 2016, and this was under the guidance and forethought of my predecessor, Mr. Brian Hussein, bringing this idea to the investment committee, which is one of our committees here at the foundation, and with the board, and really talking about how we might get into the space. Impact investing as a theory has been around for more than 20 years. It's not new. It is, however, new to our region, and this is something we wanted to focus on. So that started in 2016 with the board authorizing some exploratory work about what it might look like for us, and they created the Impact Investing Committee to do that work. The Impact Investing Committee got together and they decided that yes, indeed, this is something we should and could do, and they created their own charter and created at the end of the day the first fund. So what you see in 2018 is the first fund has been announced. It's up to $3 million of investing. Again, our goal is to have it across our 9-county area, and it's also to work cohesively with our civic engagement agenda, which was being unveiled about the same time as we were about to launch the fund, which was great because it was able to inform our thinking on what this fund might look like. So that's where we're at. We have concluded the application phase. We received 19 applicants. We've had several meetings between the board and the Impact Investing Committee to talk about what happens next. So that's where we're at right now, is figuring out how to move forward with the selected projects. Our hopes and what we can share today is this is the first pass at this. We are trying to be very transparent, that we are building on things that we're learning. We're figuring out our missteps where they're happening. But this is the first thing that we will do. Hopefully in another 12 to 18 months, we will be launching new funds that might have different focus areas, might have different geographical reaches, but we're going to learn with communities and with our investees as we go. So that is what we hope to see in the future. So other general finance updates, again, just since I happen to have the mic, I'm going to talk for a second about what we do internally. For our donors that are on the phone, we have been working on our fund statements. Those are issued quarterly to all of our donor advisors. We do issue from this office the fund statements for both CCF and our Waccamaw Community Foundation. That's over 800 funds that we issue statements for once a quarter. And we have recently updated the cover memo, so hopefully you do read that. You can file it, but maybe after you read it. We do talk about our investments in there and other things going on in the foundation, so we hope you take a look at that. And then we are also working currently on our annual reports, which we do once a year. Hopefully we'll have those issued sometime in the next couple of months for everybody to review what's happening at both foundations. The committees generally, I mentioned the Impact Investing Committee. We also have an investment committee, which is made of some very smart individuals to check our work as a management team and also to check the word of our investment consultant on the, as Darren mentioned before, our $250 million of assets. So we take that very seriously. And then finally, we have a finance committee who oversees our internal operations as far as finance is concerned. And they oversee the audit, which is something that we have every year in an attempt to make sure we are being transparent and providing good external information. What else we do? Okay, we cut the checks. That's what we do, which is of import to people on the phone for sure. We process all the grant requests. We receive all the contributions in. We provide financial statements to all 4 organizations that are part of our family. We also support our staff, which is very important to us through our HR services. So that is the finance group as a nutshell. How we do this is through our operations group to make sure that we've got great support through finance and the rest of the house. So I will now have Angel Johnson-Bredner talk a little bit about operations.
Thanks, Krista. Both Edie and Darren and Krista as well talked about turning outward. But before we could turn outward, we really needed to take a look at ourselves and focus inwardly and take a look at areas that we could grow and improve upon and make sure that we had the best-in-class services to our donors and to our community. So we did a few things in order to do that. We did several kind of self-assessments looking at finance, operations. We did a donor survey, a donor perception report. because we are a donor-centric organization, and we needed to hear from our family of donors what they wanted and needed to continue to work with us. And we took the information from that. We took a staff survey, and we created the strategic framework that Darren presented earlier. What we heard is we needed to up our game in technology. So we're in a nice, as part of the strategic framework, we are going to focus on getting a better donor portal, something that donors will enjoy logging into, learning about the work of the foundation and how they can impact their community through their grant making. We're also have added several key positions in our staff. And if we'll go to the next slide, I can introduce you to all of this is our staff at Coastal Community Foundation. So we've added Melissa Lebeck's position of Vice President of Development, so we could really focus on the stewardship of our donors and help that the development and stewardship department work with grant making and community leadership to connect our donors with the needs of our community. And we have expanded our finance department considerably, adding operations, human resources, adding a position that will focus just on investments and working with the funds, and adding a controller position to make sure that we have controls in place for the stewardship of our donors' funds in perpetuity. So as you can see, we've grown when I started, we were 14 people, so now we are up to 20. And then if we go to the next slide, we can talk about our affiliate organizations. The Waccamaw Community Foundation has grown from a staff of 0 to a staff of 3 in 2 years, and they serve Horry and Georgetown counties. Edie mentioned that their grant programs are opening up as of June 1st. So make sure you check out their website for their grant programs. And then the Bunnell Foundation serves Georgetown County, and it is doing great work around the education field. They call it Education to Career, E2C, and in October, they will be having their Pathways to Possibilities career fair. In the meantime, if you are a nonprofit in the Georgetown area, Bunnell is opening up their letters of intent for their common good grants, and those grants focus on poverty, human needs, and economic vitality. So take a look at the Bunnell Foundation's website for opportunities in the Georgetown area. So now, Melissa Lebeck is going to talk about how we're working on our stewardship efforts and our donor efforts in our work.
Sure, thank you. I'm happy to be here. And for development and stewardship at the Community Foundation, we're very donor-centric, but we also view our role in this department as an entry point for individuals, families, and businesses along the coast who are philanthropically minded and want to engage with the community and be financially supportive to do so. And we do that through multiple ways, and it's multiple ways regardless of your income level, to be candid. We are a community foundation where we believe there is a path for everyone that is interested in investing in their community to do so. To begin with, we work with multiple groups within our community. One of our newest groups is Bridge Philanthropist, and this is working with younger donors, the next generation who have an interest in giving back to our communities. And that's done not only financially, but also through volunteerism and wanting to become engaged in active citizens throughout our service area. Another way that we engage with others in the community is through our community partnership program, which also occurs with the Waccamaw Community Foundation in our northern counties of Horry and Georgetown. With the community partnership program, this is a way that every individual, family, or business throughout the coast who wants to contribute to our overall purpose of creating vibrant communities can do so. The monies that we receive go into our civic engagement agenda, and it really provides the necessary financial philanthropic capital to make positive good happen along the coast. The other way that we work is with our donors through donor advised funds that you see on the slide, but also through multiple philanthropic vehicles. We offer scholarship funds. We have donors that are very committed to funding educational pursuits for students throughout the coast. We also have field of interest funds where if somebody is really excited and motivated about our civic engagement agenda and wants to focus on funding access to economic opportunity or education or affordability, there is a way that you can do so. We also have donor advised funds, which is an excellent way that individuals can think beyond just charitable giving, but building a philanthropic legacy that is really a permanent and critical touch point along our coastal region. We provide advice and personalized plan giving services to donors as well as professional advisors. And we do that through education that's targeted for donors. We are not just about helping people financially deploy capital into the community, but we also have donor education events that we'll be doing in collaboration with Grantmaking and Community Leadership in Edie Blakesley's team so that we can have thoughtful giving and really keep our donors apprised of what's happening in our community so they can be smart stewards of their philanthropic capital. Additionally, we provide professional advisor education events. My friends laugh and they call me Glenda the Good Witch because I am a tax lawyer by training, but we help people give money in a positive way to organizations all over the coast. And there's tax planning advice is a key part of philanthropic planning, and we provide those services and educational programs throughout our service area. So we're looking forward to partnering with many and are appreciative of everyone that has a relationship with us because it's something we don't take for granted. And now I'd certainly like to pass this back to Darren so you can hear about some more good things that we're doing moving forward.
Let me just wrap us up. I want to give you the opportunity to ask us any questions that you may have with the short period of time that we have left. I would like to apologize for the technical difficulties at the beginning of this online town hall. But let me just wrap up what you've heard. We know we've given you a lot of information today, but I want you to know that the information is all related. That when we do the work that we do as a community foundation, we are absolutely sure that from a development and stewardship standpoint, from a staff capacity and talent standpoint, from the standpoint of ensuring that our finance and our operational systems and procedures are in place are all critically important because they give us the permission with integrity to do the work that we do. That we borrow essentially the goodwill and integrity and reputation of each and every donor, each and every nonprofit, and each and every partner that partners with us to go forward and do the work that we do, and that includes our board. Edie talked about the civic engagement agenda. I would just say that we know that there's not a one size that fits all strategy. We also realize that there are no silver bullets. So there's some things, some thematic commonalities that I would say that run across all of these. Intersectionality. Again, issues don't exist in silos, and so we know we have to work across silos and with maybe some non-traditional partners like governments, like the faith community, so forth and so on. We also know that great programming gets us down the road, but excellent policy and advocacy actually can do some of the things that we need to do to create real equity. And then finally, one of those commonalities in the conversations we've had in the 10 months and since, addressing the racial disparities that exist in our communities are so critically important for us to move forward courageously in the work that we're doing. So as we move forward, I'll just say that we'll continue to align our programs and priorities with the Civic Engagement Agenda themes. We'll shine a constant light on those areas that have been identified. We want to work with you, our partners, our donors, our community leaders in leveraging not only our SMRF as an organization, but your SMRF as well, your social, moral, intellectual, reputational, and financial capital. That we will work with our donors. Our donors are critically important to the work that we do, and we certainly want to continue to develop our relationships with them, but also to work with them and our communities to make progress. And that simply suggests to us as a staff and also as a board that understanding the donors' needs is one part of the equation, but providing donors the information, the input, as well as the data to help inform those decisions are critically and vitally important to how to make progress in our region. And then finally, we will do this effectively, but we'll explore co-investment opportunities from national and regional partners. We think that's very important. But there again, we think it's important for national and regional funders when they want to do work in our 9 counties to take the approach that we've taken, that they're not going to come here and do things to our communities through us, but working with us, they will work with our communities and bring their SMRF to the table as well. The final question I have is how can you get involved? And that is simply call one of these people. No, I'm just kidding. There are many ways for you to get involved. We've talked about all of those today, and we just look forward to working with you and doing more business with you. I'll leave you with a quote that Edie mentioned, and I can't remember which board member said it, but it's this quote. Progress moves at the speed of trust. So with that concludes our formal presentation, and I think we have just about 8 minutes, to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Darren, and thank you to my wonderful leadership team here. My colleague Angel Rose and I are the communications department, and I just want to thank everyone who stuck on the line with us for the first few minutes where you could hear us but not see the slides. Thank you. It looks like everybody actually stuck online, so that makes us happy and proud. Now you have the opportunity in the box where it says questions on your screen to type us any questions you have about the material you heard, and we'll spend this time doing Q&A. Would anybody like to ask a first question? Right now, I don't see anybody on here with a question. Does anybody have any questions, folks? Type it right in there where it says questions. It looks like a little instant messenger box.
If you don't have any questions, we're going to give you a gift of 6 minutes.
We sure are.
Back for your time.
All right, folks, this is our URL where you can find out much more about everything we talked about today. And we're always adding content on there as we expand our communications department through all these new initiatives. And just to let you know, you can always email us at communications@coastalcommunityfoundation.org. If you think of a question after we end today's session, or if you've had any trouble with this session and downloading the materials. And last but not least, please follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn as Coastal Community Foundation. And we will be sharing this link to this full recording so you can share it with a colleague or revisit what we've talked about today. Thank you, everyone, for being on the line. I see somebody here asking how we can get involved with the Bridge Philanthropist program.
Oh, well, I would say one way you can do it is certainly send me an email. My email is melissa@coastalcommunityfoundation.org. We have information on our website about Bridge Philanthropists. As a group, we try to meet at least every 2 months, And it's a great way to engage with peers, learn about the practice of philanthropy. We have opportunities where you can participate on site visits, learn about grant making and organizations in the community, and I would be delighted to connect you with that group and start a conversation.
Thanks, Melissa. And we do have a few other questions coming in now. Thanks, folks. And we have several people on here saying thank you to us. Well, we thank you for giving us your time. So somebody is asking if the listening sessions for the community conversations are complete yet.
So that is a great question. They are not. We currently are scheduling community conversations in Georgetown County at the moment. But we will turn, after we finish those conversations in Georgetown, a couple more in Horry County, probably more towards the end of this calendar year. We'll then start going and having a different type of conversation that does not take 2 hours of your time. There is an additional set of questions, and so we'll turn that corner and use that other tool, but it probably won't be for our other counties until the end of the calendar year. Great question, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Edie. And also, I'll add, just because this is something we talk about often via our communications, these things are living, breathing projects and documents. And so we are building a continuous feedback loop with our community about what we're doing. This might be our first virtual town hall today, folks, but it's not going to be our last. Okay, so we have another question here wondering about the expansion of our staff and how that has progressed in light of the size of our fund.
I think for many years, I would say for the, let's say, first 38, we thought of we needed, as a nonprofit organization, we needed to be lean and mean staff, and we still need to be efficient but effective. And looking at the size of our staff and how I would say the last 15 years, we went from having 200 funds to 800 funds, serving 8 counties, 9 counties, 2 affiliate organizations to 4 affiliate organizations. We needed to make sure that we were growing our staff and our expertise as our donor base grew, so that we could provide those best-in-class services that Darren spoke of, and so that we could provide excellent stewardship that Melissa spoke of. So as we grow in the future, I would say for the next several years, we think our staff is right size. And we are growing, we're adding, with the Pinckney expansion, we're adding a scholarship coordinator that will help as we have grown the Pinckney Fund and as we're growing our scholarships. And we're adding a program officer as we grow the work of our civic engagement agenda. So those are the 2 hires we're looking at in the near future. But we think that's the right size for where we are. And again, as our number of funds grow and assets grow, we'll continue to make sure that we have the staff to provide the best-in-class services.
Thanks, Angel. And I think that's the last question we have that came in here on the instant messenger. This is perfect. It's 1 p.m. almost on the dot. Thank you, everyone, for attending today, and we will provide a link to this session very soon on social media and in our e-newsletter. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.